Hey everyone, welcome back to season 2 of You Were Meant for More. I am your host, Francine Ayala, and I am so excited as far as what's coming for 2025. I've recently launched an 8-week program called Ignite Your Confidence, and we are going to focus on the fundamentals of faith, fitness, and finance, because those are the 3 foundations that you need to really break through in this new year. So are you ready to step out into your power and purpose and walk boldly and confidently into your next season? Go ahead and contact me at francineayala.com/men for more. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of You Are Meant for More. I am your host, Francine Ayala, and I am so excited for this amazing woman to join me again. We had such a great show, Hannah, so of course I had to bring her back.
Yeah, we really did.
Right, exactly. Into the show today, that our topic is going to be how to set boundaries and to protect your peace. And my apologies in advance if you hear me clearing my throat or a little cough, because I have something lingering. And Hannah was so gracious to do this show with me. And we were just going to bring all the value to you, all of the goodness, and just share from our own experiences on really how to protect your boundaries, because it's ultimately going to shift on how you are living at peace inside and out. Okay. So let's jump into this. Thank you, Hannah, for being here. I appreciate you.
You're so welcome. Anytime we show up for each other, right?
Yes, absolutely. And you know, what I love about her is that I can literally call and be like, Hannah, I need your help. She's like, what do you got? What do you got? How can I help you? She's like, okay, I got this meeting, but I can come this day.
We'll make it work.
I know. And I'm so grateful for that. So thank you. Oh my goodness. I'm so appreciative of you. All right. One of the things I wanted to dive into first is I wanted to talk about the difference between toxic people and difficult people, because I was listening to, you know, you and I are always on this self-development journey of like growing as, you know, individuals and in our business and in our overall well-being. And I listened to this podcast the other day, sorry, from Hal Elrod, and he does the Miracle Mornings, and his episode was about how to differentiate the two between toxic people and difficult people. Basically, the toxic people are the people that, you know, that have the toxicity, that are actually intentionally trying to hurt you, versus the people that you want to give grace to. And so I wanted to share that. And I was just going to ask, what in your life have you experienced where, and maybe you want to give examples where there are somebody who was toxic versus somebody who was difficult, and how did that show up in your life?
Woo, getting personal real quick. All right.
We're just going to go there, girl. We're just going to jump right in.
Right in. That's fine. I'm an open book, honestly. So most of the most recent experience of toxicity that I have had was a few years ago, an ex-boyfriend. And I, you know, this is not to like bash the man or anything, but I experienced the toxicity in terms of gaslighting. I never knew that term, never understood that term. I really have a lot of confidence in myself. I know who I am at my core. I know I'm strong. I know I can lead my life. But unfortunately, this partner really made me feel small, really made me feel like I had to second guess myself all of the time, that I didn't hold the value that I knew I did. And I never saw that when you're in it, you're too deep inside of it. So afterwards, hindsight's 2020, I've really gone back and taken kind of a more analytical look at that relationship and why I allowed those things to happen to me, how I fell into those, you know, habits of dealing with this human being. And so I could identify it going forward as well. But it's hard because I feel like gaslighting is such it's a popular term. It's a little bit of a trigger term. Everybody's talking about gaslighting these days. But man, when you experience it, like you really do feel like you're crazy, because you're like, I know I didn't do that, or I know I said it this way. And they make you question your own reality. of what happened. And it was the most toxic thing I've ever experienced. And since getting out of that situation, I have flourished because I'm like, oh yeah, never mind. It was right. I have all that confidence, all that inner strength. I have everything that I need. And without somebody in my ear saying, no, you're wrong, or you're not good enough, or whatever, man, it's been so freeing. So
Yes.
that was my personal experience of toxicity, and it was rough.
Yes. And you know what's so funny that you made that reference to, you don't even realize it when you're knee deep in it, when you're around somebody, that you care for and you will do anything for them, because as women, we're very loving and giving, creatures, humans that really want to support and be there for people in general, and especially someone we love, care about.
Right. Right.
And I find because it's so ironic, because the same thing happened to me not too long ago. And I remember having this conversation, so sorry, with my coach. And I told her, this person acted this way towards me and hurt me. Like, it hurt me inside. And I remember thinking, like, why did that hurt me so much? And then she says, because part of you believed what he said.
Ooh, ouch.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm somebody, you're right. I'm somebody who's empowered, who won't let anybody talk to me a certain way, who is definitely someone who stands up for themselves and will not take a certain type of individual in their lives. But I was like, where did this come from? And so she said, because part of me believed him. And
Yeah.
I was like, wow.
Yeah.
And, when we reflect on, all the opportunities we get to work on ourselves, we get to show up for ourselves, because we then start to attract better. We then start to realize, oh, wow, part of me was feeling insecure. Part of me lacked depth or awareness or love towards myself. So it's showing up in other people.
Yeah. And I have two kind of like comments to build off of that.
Yes,
Number one,
please.
I always want to put out there to anybody that's listening, give yourself a little bit of grace. If
Oh,
you're
absolutely.
experiencing toxicity and you're kind of starting to recognize that you're in that situation, whether it be a romantic partner, a friendship, a family member, whatever it is, doesn't matter. It's not anything that's wrong with you. Everybody goes through this. Everybody experiences toxic relationships or toxic people at one point or another.
Mhm.
And the fact that you're going through it, it just is, it's okay. It's nothing wrong with you and like when we say like, oh, maybe I attracted that, like, I want to just be very clear that this is not like a reflection that you deserve this, or that, the people around you reflect who you really are. Like if you're going through a toxic situation, okay, step number one is recognizing that you have a problem, like, or that a problem exists. And good for you, because that's also step number one of getting out of that situation.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Right? So it's like
Absolutely.
I always, and because I needed to give myself grace as well. So I constantly have to remind myself it's not because there was anything necessarily wrong with me, or that
Right.
I attracted this person who didn't treat me correctly, or whatever. I just had to be like, you know what? It was a situation that I learned a lot from, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
better on the other side of it, period.
Yeah,
That's the grace that I have to give myself, and I want to give to every single person listening and
absolutely.
experiencing these things. But number two, when you say, you know, it does kind of reflect a little bit of what we're going through, and it is an opportunity to recognize the baggage that we're carrying along with us. I know specifically in my situation, I was going through a huge change personally, professionally. This was like the most catalyst, like momentous part of my life. I was working with my first coach. I started my first business. I started and failed my first business. I was changing careers. I was doing all this stuff to really find myself and figure out what I was on this earth to do. And with that comes a lot of self doubt and a lot of questioning yourself. And unfortunately, this human that I had by my side was not the cheerleader that I needed in that moment.
Mm.
He did reflect a lot of the insecurities that I had.
Mm-hmm.
And I allowed it to get to myself because, like you're saying, I kind of thought there was that stuff too. Like it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't anything that really surprised me. I'm like, maybe you're right. But no, like
Yeah.
it's not that I deserved that or that he was right or that I wasn't worthy or that I, didn't, I don't know. I wasn't strong or firm in my stance. It's just that I was going through changes. Everybody second guessed themselves when you're going through a change. And unfortunately, instead of having that strong support that I really needed, I had somebody who was cutting me off at the knees. And that's all it was. And once I got rid of that, we grew.
Yeah.
Great.
And that's literally, and I'm glad you shared those. And it's all about, like you said, the awareness. It's recognizing it,
Yeah.
and that's what I talk about. It's not necessarily like, oh, it's you're bad, you're this, you're that. It's not, it's really understanding who you are,
Yeah,
and
it's
where
turning the lens
it's
inward, and I
their
hear you.
opportunities. Yes. And I'm always about, hey, every single person, every single situation that comes your way is an opportunity to learn. So,
Yeah.
like the other day, I posted on my social media, I said, bless and be grateful for all of the past relationships you've been in,
Oh,
because they've
absolutely.
only propelled you into who you're basically coming to be.
Hmm.
And so I'm like, absolutely, I bless everybody I've ever come into contact with, good or bad, because they're all learning opportunities. And so whenever anything comes up, to me, that's a little bit out of the ordinary, I'm like, where's this coming from? Like, and
Totally.
it's only because, like, I love that you're here, Hannah, because Hannah can say, you know, give yourself grace. And I do. That's like my favorite line. I always tell people, give yourself grace for how far you've come. Somebody asked me the other day, what is a one lesson somebody has given you that has really helped you in your life? And I'm like, give yourself grace for how far you've come,
Hmm.
because I'm not the person I was yesterday. I'm not the person I was 20 years ago. And it's just allowing that love to continue to evolve into who you are.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, but I know we're as women, again, we're really quick to, like, self-doubt ourselves and be like, oh, that's me, why am I continuing this? But it's like, when you flip the switch, like you said, and really saying, okay, what about this situation or what about this person is about me? And we get to look inward. And it's like, okay, so there, at me as a coach, I have tons of opportunities. So whenever I'm approached with something, I'm like, so I take it as I get to really think about it, because one of the biggest things I got to do as a coach and speaker is I got to master my emotions. So I
Mm.
get to control the way people affect my emotions. You know what I mean? And it's just something that, again, it comes with constant personal development.
It's always a practice and a
Yes.
journey, right? I don't even think that the people who are like, the gurus and the, people who have quote unquote made it to this stage
Yes.
of enlightenment or whatever, they're never done.
Right.
We're always practicing. And
Yes.
so many things just came up for me with what you were saying,
Good.
where it's like, number one, having something that somebody tells you, that kind of sticks with you is so important, whether it's give yourself grace. One of the ones that really helped me is what you resist persists.
Yes. Oh my
And
goodness, I got that in coaching too. So go ahead.
I know, well, that's the thing. It's a big deal. And a lot of times, toxic relationships are things that we are resisting. We don't want to think about them because they're painful, or drawing those boundaries or letting go of that relationship. Those are hard things to do. And so a lot of times we procrastinate and we put them off and put them off. And it just keeps going. It keeps being a problem that is not getting fixed or addressed. And so the longer that you resist it, the longer it persists. And I've tried to bring that practice into my life where I'm like, ooh, okay, I really don't want to deal with this right now. But if I don't, it's just going to keep bothering me or keep being a problem. So that was one of the ones that really made a difference for me.
So one of the things I'm going to say really quick, and this is going to definitely come up in a later show. Everyone's going to probably be like, what? What are you talking about? I've done some really deep training, and some people do know about it, and I'm just probably, you know, just overthinking that, and not a lot of people know. But what when you said what persists, will what we
What?
resist will still
Yeah,
persist.
yeah. What you resist persists.
So everything, every emotion that we hold on to from our whole neurology is attached to our body. So when we hurt in a certain area, when we injure a certain area, it's reflective of something that we're holding on to. And so I don't know if you've gone this far, like in learning those mechanics of everything, but I will bring somebody in as a speaker later on down the line. But but ultimately, like, for example, and this is something that always happens to me, like, obviously because of everything that I've been trained in, is like the other day I hit my toe and I was like, all right, what am I holding on to? You know what I mean? Because again, it all interacts, the body, the wavelengths, everything. We're all frequencies. It's the vibrational frequencies that we have. So if there's something that you're holding on to, you're not speaking out, you're not, wanting to release, what you resist persists. It's going to continue to affect you. And like I said, I know that's a lot. That's deep.
There's a whole practice on this, and
There's a whole
actually,
practice.
yeah, the reason I know about it, I was good friends with a doctor who did all
Good,
the deep
good,
work
good.
on this. But yeah, I mean, it can be as much as like stomach issues
Yes,
or, long standing like acid reflux or something. Let's say you've dealt with it for years. Like you're saying, we're all energy, and the energy, like where we hold our tension and where we keep it, can show up and manifest in like physical ailments. And so
correct.
it definitely is a way to kind of, again, turn the lens inward and look at stuff. That's a whole thing that
Yes, it
we
is.
can
I just, I mean, I'm like, I think Hannah knows because we're personal development gurus, and so we're all about jumping into all things holistic and really understanding the process of the body and the neurology that is within us, and the traumas that affect us, the emotions that drain us, all of it. And so, anyways, let's continue our topic because we could go. I mean, I know you and
on
I
and
could
on and on
talk.
and
We'll keep going.
on.
We'll keep going. We got stories. We got stories. And
Mhm.
so, but I want to really emphasize the difference between the toxic people versus the difficult people. So, toxic people are those types of people that are specifically intentionally trying to hurt you. And like Hannah, you said, the gaslighting, or any type of verbiage that you're not good enough, and who do you think you are, and just speaking type negatively to you. And those are the types of people that you want to break away from, that you want to position yourself away from them. Those are toxic people that you have to change your environment and get away from. Versus difficult people, like, and this is like maybe something you can relate to as well, is like, for example, somebody that continues to show up in your life who's like a naysayer, a negative person, but maybe they just need some love and compassion. Maybe they just need some guidance. They were probably put into your life because you get to be a blessing to them. And so there's not necessarily toxic where they're trying to intentionally hurt you. They're just negative and they need to see something a different way. And
And a
so,
lot of times those negative people, that's their own thing.
yes,
Negative outlook on life comes from their set of
right,
experiences and even how they were taught to react or interact with those experiences. So this
exactly.
negative person comes into your life and everything's bad and everything you do is like, and there's no like light and positivity with this person. You might just be like, oop, X-nay, cut them out of my life.
Yes.
You could do that. I mean, that's one way of dealing with it. But another option is to be the guidepost, the beacon,
Yes.
and not let their negativity affect you, because we don't want to intake that energy. But showing them, like, oh my gosh, no, I'm just going to live my authentic, positive, happy life out here and just be an example to them. And it doesn't have to be like, look at me, I'm showing you. Just
Right.
be. And when
Right.
they come to you, this has also happened to me. I have heard feedback about myself, through the grapevine, as you do. Oh, you met these people, you've been hanging out with them, or like your longtime friends, whatever. and through the grapevine, you hear that they make comments about you. It's not always negative. That's not where I'm going with
Yeah.
it. But sometimes those comments, and what happened to me was like, oh my gosh, every time we talk to Hannah, it's always like, what's happening? What's she building? What can we build together? And business and activity and movement. And oh my God, it's exhausting. And I'm laughing to myself because I'm like, yeah, that's not wrong. That's totally who I am. I would love for people to think of me in a light where they come to me and it's ideas and movement and building and positive energy and like, oh my gosh, let's do something together. I love that. That's my happy place. And if people know that about me, whether or not they gravitate towards that, not my problem.
Yeah.
They can or they cannot, if whatever they choose to do. But I love that people can identify that in me. And if they want to come to me knowing that I am that person, then they're kind of gravitating towards that. And that's their little guidepost. And they're kind of, okay, I like that. Or they're like, ew, I hate that. Like, I want to be negative, and they stay away from me. Better for me.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how that can happen where you're just like, I'm just going to be me. And if you want to be a part of that, like, come on over, but I'm not going to
Yes.
change.
Yes. And that's great. I mean, ultimately it's funny because I remember hearing, as we start to evolve, as we start to personal develop, as we start to focus on ourselves and love ourselves inside and out, we start to realize that people drop off on their own.
Yes.
We've never disconnected them from our lives. They tend to drop off on their own. And that's okay. It sometimes, I remember I had to go through it. It hurt because I was like, wow, okay, I'm kind of alone now.
Yeah, I
But
got
that's,
ghosted.
where what you face in those growth seasons as you're evolving. And it's not, some of them, like, they're still there, but we may not hang out as much, things like that. So it's okay. There's so much opportunity to be able to create boundaries to protect your peace, because when you are able to be around, it's all about like the people you associate with, the environment you're in. Like, just recently I've noticed, if I'm working from home, I do a lot of my content here, but if I'm actually working, trying to get things done, it doesn't happen as much. I need to step outside of this area and change my environment, because that's ultimately what will keep me more productive. But anyways, that's on another story, on another subject or topic. And so I really want to just I want to emphasize that it's okay for you to set healthy boundaries, because I don't know if this ever happened to you, Hannah, were you always like that yes person? Like, hey,
100%. I still am. Again, our journeys never end. I am a yes person. I am a people pleaser. I'm a can do, let's go, I'm in, I'm with you type of person. And I don't know if anybody listening to this can understand if they're that type of person.
I was that person, Hannah, but I had to set boundaries.
It's exhausting when we're talking about protecting our peace and you're just like, you are that type of person to your core. And listen, I also, in terms of like giving ourselves grace, I love that about us. We are that positive friend that is always going to be there and wants to see you win and wants to like go to that thing with you because you want to do it. Oh my God, yeah, let's go. Whatever it is. Or, like, you need help. I'm here to help you. I am a yes person. That's a beautiful thing about my personality. There is a dark side to every personality. Every positive personality trait has a flip side, right? Like, it can go dark. But like, yeah, I just like, that's the grace that we give ourselves. But girl, it takes energy. Being a yes person, are you joking? So in terms of having to protect your peace, and like, oh my gosh, when you couple that with being an extrovert, if you're a yes person and an extrovert, you're going, you're gone, you're doing, you're out, you're this, you're that, like, never stops. And there's a certain point where you're going to feel burnt out and like your gas tank is empty and you're going to be like, oh my God, what do I do? How do I change this? Cause I don't want to do this all the time. I'm tired. And I
I'm trying to tell them how to protect their peace, and you're just going off.
Well, it's
You're
like,
like, I'm a yes person. You're
well,
like,
no,
come to
no, no.
me.
Like, to be fair, right? Where it's like that's a beautiful thing,
No,
but
it is a beautiful thing.
but learn that when you get to the point, because you're gonna, as a
Yes.
yes person, you're gonna get to the point where you have nothing left to give. Your cup is empty because you just poured and poured and poured. And that's the point where you're like, okay, I need to figure out how to change this. And then you start to figure out what boundaries do I need to set. And it's not like, I feel like boundaries can be a little bit of a trigger word sometimes, because boundaries don't mean like, this is my line in the sand and you can't cross it. It's not always that. It's also boundaries within yourself, right? That's how I started too, because once you can really get comfortable and secure in your own boundaries, then you can start kind of putting them out into the world, out into your existing relationships, because you've practiced a little bit
Mm-hmm.
internally. And one of my big things was saying no. I don't want to go do that, or I don't have the time to go do that, or I'm not going to shift my whole schedule around to accommodate this thing. I would love to make you happy, but no, I can't. And that's okay. Like the world's going to go forward. Everybody's going to be all right. But I've then just protected myself. Sometimes just by saying no and creating that one boundary, you've done great things for yourself.
And I think that's what it is. It's really understanding that it's okay to say no. Because you're burnt out, because you're stretched too thin, and so many women feel like they can't say no, and that's where it's like, okay, how do you set boundaries and how do you protect your peace, and giving yourself grace to do that, and really sorry, you're just like making me laugh because I'm like, yes, girl, I knew I was a people pleaser too. I was like,
Well,
the
if
yes
you're that type
girl.
of person, you identify with what we're talking about.
That's why I was laughing so hard. I don't know. I had to put myself on mute because I was laughing so hard, and I started coughing.
Oh
So
no.
crazy. And I love that you said that. I was like, girl, we have the same personality. I kid you not. I'm like, you're like, yeah, let's go. Let's go. I got this, I got that. And I'm just like, oh my goodness. But I also, like you said, it comes up and you become really exhausted. And so some of the things that, people go through is like the exhaustion, or they avoid, meeting with people. Like one of the things that I noticed I did, and maybe you can relate, is I tend to isolate. I tend to isolate because I'm like, I can't. There's so much that I do, and like you said, sometimes people, when they talk about you, they're positive things, and they want to do what you're doing, but like I get women that want to meet up for lunch, connect. They want to get together all the time, and it's like I really have to be aware of the time that I share. I used to book meetings all the time. I used to be like, sure, let's do lunch. Sure, let's do coffee. Sure, and I was like, yes, 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 and I'm like, I can. It really burnt me out, and I just didn't have the capacity to do it anymore. So now it's funny because I isolated. Now I've made it a point, like, okay, Francine, you got to get out of the house once a week, So,
It's the
but
pendulum swing, right? You go from one extreme to another, but
yes.
eventually you find that like happy medium. And so
Oh yeah.
again, give yourself the grace. It's practice. It's all practice. So like, yeah, you might go hard in the opposite direction
Right. Right.
immediately, but then you'll kind of like be like, okay, this is where I can do both.
Yes, exactly. So I wanted to share just like some of the things that I had written down originally to talk about this, is like, get clear on what you need and ask yourself, what do I need to feel at peace? More alone time, less drama, fewer last minute requests, and then more respect for your work hours. And so how can you relate to that in those areas, like as far as those types of questions?
Well, I think we just kind of covered the, more alone time or less work hours. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
those both fall into the capability to say no, or at least really drill down on how to set up your calendar. This is when I have time to do things. And these are the times where I'm not going to edge in on my personal time, my recharging time. For me, it was a long time practicing that, of figuring out like, okay, nights and weekends are really important to me. And of course, it's a case by case basis. If it's something that's extremely important, yeah, we go do it nights, weeks, weekends, whatever, but not everything. It's not a blanket yes to everything anymore. In terms of drama and either drama within your own life or people that you know are just, they gravitate towards drama. My boundaries are I don't really engage in drama. I think I've really put out the message without verbally saying anything. I'm not the friend that you go to talk drama. I'm not interested. I'm not going to be like, oh my God, no way. What did she say? Blah, blah, blah. I don't want it. And, I feel like people who are that way, who really gravitate towards the drama, they want that. They want that other person that's going to feed back into their loop. And I just won't. I don't care to. I don't want to. It sucks the life out of me. So those people don't come to me for the drama talk. And it happens over time where like I still lovingly engage with them. I'm still friends with them. And girl or guy, I will talk to you no matter what and engage with you at social functions and stuff. We'll be great friends. But like when it comes to the drama, this happened, he said, she said, like, oh my God, can you believe? I'm like, I'll probably just like slowly back away from the conversation. It's not for me. I don't want it. And that's a huge part of protecting my peace. I don't know if you have any other skills or things that you've done in that category, but I feel like just putting out the message that that's not how I want to engage and that's not what I want to talk about has really served me well.
Oh, absolutely. I think that you nailed it with engaging in any type of talk or environment that doesn't reflect who you are. And that's why I'm like, that's why I isolate. No, I'm kidding. And it's like, no, it's honestly, I don't mean to do it on purpose. Like the other day, actually, I drove by one of my best friend's house and I gave her a big old hug and we caught up for a little bit. But it's like, it's just because I'm so focused, I'm busy with everything that I'm doing and so forth. But yeah, it's really knowing that there's, with me, because I know a lot of people who know me knew I was very like happy. Oh, Francine, you're so bubbly. You're so, happy all the time. You're always smiling. That's what they, oh, you're always smiling. And it's just like, good. You know what I mean? Like I get those like compliments, you're always smiling and this and that. And I love that. And so when it's the negative people that talk, when they say certain things, before I used to engage in it and in a manner where it wasn't appropriate, meaning like I was like, why are you always so negative? And people don't want to know that. They don't want to hear that. And they don't know how to receive that. Mm-hmm. And so when I started really changing, my response to that, it was just being more empathetic and really understanding and knowing what they're going through and really listening, because like I got to become a really good listener and understand the whole process of what they were complaining about, really. And then I would just ask questions. Yeah. And that's kind of where the whole love and grace came in, because there were many people I was like, it's so funny. I don't know if you've ever like been on social media and you've seen like something that's like, Virgo women, they'll cut you off like that. And I'm just like, wow, that's so me.
I'm an Aquarius, and I think the Aquarius ones are always like their heads in the clouds. They're off thinking about aliens and or something like that. And I'm like, yeah, kind of.
You're like, wow, that's kind of me,
I'd rather be thinking about anything else. Thank you so much.
But it's true. I mean, like the thing is, like, I love very hard. I love very deep, and and if there's anybody that just destroys my peace, I'm just like, bye. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So it's like
it's also something you come to with age too.
Yes, absolutely.
Like we've both done it. Like we're the age that we are. We've taken the time to test all of this out. So it's not like I've always been this way. It's not like I've always known these boundaries. You come to it with time and experience. So for better or for worse, you just got to walk the path. And you've got to experience all the things, and then you'll know where you land. And then in terms of like empathy, I think that there's a slippery slope that can happen
Mm-hmm.
where when you become the shoulder to cry on, the listening ear, the empathetic friend, it can become you're the go-to person when they want to complain about stuff because they know that you'll have a sympathetic ear. And I think this is just one of my personality traits, but I've leaned into it over the years, is I'm a very empathetic person to a point.
To a
And I
point.
think
Absolutely.
like when you create boundaries and you start protecting your peace, you have to understand where that point is. Like I'm here. I want to empathize with you. I want to hear what's going on. But if I hear about it one too many times,
That's it.
you just want to complain. I'm not here for that. We've
Yeah.
already talked about it. We've already talked about it at length. Listen,
Mm-hmm.
now we need to talk about solutions. And a lot of times, the people who are just negative and just want to complain, they don't want to hear your solutions. They're in their happy place. They're in their
Yeah.
complaining phase. Like they're good. And so as soon as you kind of like switch the conversation into, well, what are we going to do about this? How can I help you? Is there support that you need? Or like, what if you frame it in this different light? Is this like a different way to see it? Can you see a path through? They're like, no. And then they'll kind of like stop talking about it because they don't want to talk about, how to be done with it. They
Right.
like being in it. So it's, you know what, even just having those like kind of positive conversations where you're like, oh my God, let's fix this. I'm here with you. I'm your support system. If they are the type of person that just wants to complain and just wants to like suck that energy, they'll just stop coming to you after a little while, or they'll know that they can talk to you, but they can't talk to you 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times about the same thing. I'm like, okay, listen, we've talked about this already.
Yeah.
You know I love you. You know I'm here for you. But this, like, enough is enough. Where are we going now? Like, how do we want to change this?
Yeah. What strategies are you going to implement to further, your career or your life, whatever that may look like? Where are you stuck? You know what I mean?
Well, and
And
a lot of it is kind of like repeating back to them where I'm like, listen, I'm taking you at face value in terms of
Mhm.
you're telling me that you're upset about this, that you're unhappy about this, that it's not
Right.
good, it's negative, whatever. I'm believing what you're telling me. So
Right.
let's change it. Let's figure out how to get through this. Why would you want to stay in that negative space?
Mm.
I'm believing you. But then if you're showing me no, 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 no. I don't actually hate it. I actually kind of love it because I either, some people get attention from being negative,
Oh, yeah.
or they, they feel involved, like they're part of the situation if they talk about the drama. There's like all these different payouts that people can get from being negative or from being dramatic. And once you learn to like identify, like, oh, that's what they're actually getting something out of this and they don't want solutions and they don't want to change, then you're like, I'm good. I'm good. I'm backing out of this. And I'm not
Yeah.
going to do that to myself of continuously engaging in this.
Right. Right. No, absolutely. So one of the things that as women, we tend to, feel bad. We feel bad about not being able to be there for people. And one of the things that like growing up, I was always that person that volunteered as the leader, as the captain, as the one in charge. And it was funny. I'll never forget third grade. They gave me like a leadership award. Third grade, girl.
I love it for you.
You know, how old are you in third grade? I don't know.
I don't even remember.
8, 9. So, but later on down the line, I got to realize because one of my friend, who's my friend, she was a part of this coaching program I was in, and I remember towards the end of that training, I volunteered as a captain because ultimately everybody kind of voluntold me, but I also like, okay, fine, I'll do it, because I was the one that was like leading everything. So anyway, she's like, well, why did you volunteer for it when you knew you couldn't do it? And I said, well, I didn't know my schedule was going to be so busy. She goes, well, maybe you're just a people pleaser and you say yes to everything. And I know we talked about this earlier, and I was just like, that is really something to acknowledge
Like,
and to
first of all,
understand.
don't call me out like that. I know
Yeah.
I'm a people pleaser.
Yeah. No, for sure. But you're hilarious. I love it. But it was really an opportunity of like learning and growing within myself to say, okay, why do I say yes to everything? it reminded me, excuse me, of another time where I was doing a quiz, and it was for another personal development, motivational speaker. And it was asking you all the things. And then, you had approval addiction. So there was some type of approval addiction because I was taking this quiz and I was like, I don't really care what people think about me. I'm good. And then you realize that there's this approval addiction. So approval addiction leads to also people pleasing, and you want to be the center of attention, and you want to be the one that everyone goes to. And I'm like, I'm exhausted. I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah. You're making
good.
me laugh because I had almost an identical situation realization. I was working with a coach of mine and I was like, I don't need external validation. I don't care what people think about me. And then like you go on to just like chit chat and tell them like, why are things important to you? Why do you bend over backwards to do the things that you're doing? And they're like,
Right.
I think you do need that. And I think you're lying to yourself. And you're like, well,
You're like, oh, okay.
no, I'm convincing myself that I don't need nothing from nobody. And you're actually
No.
really
And
good.
this is why these conversations are so good to have, because we're unaware of them. We
Yeah.
don't even realize we're doing certain things. And so it's like, it allows that woman that's listening or watching our episode to say, hey, I don't have to show up for everything. Where that was a constant program that they were running. That was a constant, need that they needed to go through, because it helped them feel at ease or at peace. But it's like, wait a second, I do give myself way too much of my time to everyone. I do stretch myself too thin. I am exhausted. I am resenting people because they're taking too much of my time. So it's really understanding where you're at and knowing that when you give yourself boundaries, and again, boundaries is not a bad word, it's just allowing yourself to have that peace, to know that it's okay to say no, to know you don't have to explain yourself as to why you can't do something.
Well, and I also want to circle that back to something that you just said,
Sure.
where, you had volunteered as a leadership position within this group, and ultimately you didn't have the time and you got called out about just being a people pleaser.
Right.
That situation is very telling, because one of the things that we do as people pleasers, or, as women, where we want to take care of everybody, is that we will say yes and yes and yes. But what is at the root of saying yes? We
Mm-hmm.
want to help. We want to care for. We want to give these people a sense of, whoever it is, friends, family, partners, whatever, a sense of love and support and all of this stuff. That's why we say yes to these things. We want to show up for them. But
Right.
if you keep saying yes and you're stretched too thin, you
Yeah.
are not going to show up in a way that is loving or supportive. You use the word resentment. That's a huge one. Or just low energy, where you just don't have a lot to give. And so, yes, you might be physically present in that moment, but you're distracted, or you really rather would be taking a nap because you're so depleted. And you're not actually showing up for the people in the way that at the core of it was your intention. And so sometimes it takes that check in with yourself to say, am I going to show up in the way that they need, or that I want to show up? And if the answer is no, just say no. Because why give of yourself, 10%, 20%, where you're like, yeah, I'm here, but I'm not excited, or I don't really want to be here. Nobody wants that. It's like going to work sick. Nobody wants you to show up to work sick. You're going to get everybody else sick. And that's like, I mean, it's just like, take emotion out of it. That's kind of how it is. Don't show up if you don't have anything to give. So really, like, check in with yourself.
Yes. I'm so glad you circled back to that, because it is, you can't pour from an empty cup, right? Like we always say. And it's giving yourself that love and that, reflection of it's okay, because people are going to adjust to who you are becoming, as you're loving on yourself and saying, okay, no, I don't need to show up for everyone, people will adjust, and you don't need to feel bad about it. And that, I think that's, sorry, I think that's where we get stuck as to like, oh, I need to explain myself.
Hmm.
And it's like, you really don't, sometimes people will say, well, it does, you can, for those of you that want to explain yourself, you can make it as simple as, I've booked myself to, I've extended myself too much this week. My schedule filled up really quickly. You don't have to. All I'm saying is if like you need to share that with someone, because what's happening is when people expect something of you, they're going to want to expect it every single time. And then you have to be like, I just can't, I don't have the capacity to add that, to my calendar. And that's okay. So
It's
protect your
totally
peace.
okay. And honestly, sometimes just saying no without an explanation is way easier because sometimes if you give an explanation, there are going to be those people that are like, oh, well, I have a solution to what you just said, so we can still make it work. And they'll try to like convince you or sell you on still doing the thing that they want from you. So sometimes being like, no, I'm sorry, I just don't have the capability to do that, period, with like no explanation is easier.
Period.
Yeah.
Period. Do
Yeah.
it with us. Period.
Ah, it's true though. It's true. Like sometimes you're just gonna come up against those people that don't want to take no for an answer. And
Yes.
it is so much harder to like go back and forth with them with explanations and reasons and and justifications than just simply being like no. And you can always be like no, not right now,
Yeah.
but I can do it, X day or at X time or whatever, and giving them an alternative. That's also very helpful and still protects your peace.
Yes.
But yeah, so I mean, sometimes, yeah, explanations are great. Sometimes, you know, either
And
they're not warranted or they'll be worse.
yeah, exactly. And ultimately, it's a matter of self-respect. You're giving yourself that respect. You're protecting your peace, your energy, your time, and it provides like simplicity, throughout your household, your family. Because what happens too is we tend to, when we feel those negative types of feelings because we're stretched too thin, it then impacts the people around you.
Oh my
And
God, our brains were going in the same direction, I swear to God. Because have you ever, anybody listening, are you, Francine, have you ever been in that situation where you come home and you're so excited to have the time with your kids or have the time with your partner? You're like, ugh, I've been like doing all this stuff. Now I get to be home with my people. And those people, kids, spouse, whoever, are just like catatonic. They're like, I can't. I have nothing left to give. Or they're a little snippy because they're so tired and they're just not being their best self. Maybe they're, a little rude and they're like, oh, I just don't want to deal with it. Or like, I don't know, you make that decision or whatever. And all of a sudden you're like, I was really excited to hang out with you. But now this is like not that cool and I don't really want to be here. That stinks.
yeah,
That's not cool. I don't like that. Like, I don't ever want to do that to my spouse. I don't ever want to do that to my family. And that takes intentional, conservation of energy or protecting of my peace throughout my day so that when I am at home and showing up for my core people, I get to be happy, I get to be energetic, or I get to be the person that I want to be around them so they get to experience me as they know and love me instead of a tired, snippy, frustrated person. So it's like thinking about how you want to show up in that like sanctuary of your home and for your core people. It's not just about yourself. This is not a purely selfish endeavor. This is also not just about the people that you experience out in your day-to-day life through business or school or whatever it might be. This is, I need to understand how much energy I have to give in a day and strategically place it where it needs to go so that I can be the person I want to be throughout those hours of the day. And then you start saying no. And then you start shifting around your schedule. And then you start saying like, okay, maybe not now, because that'll like overload my plate. I'll do it later or whatever it is. All of those strategies that you can do to protect your peace. But man, that was a big lesson for me to learn is I can't go out and give my energy to everybody else and then come home and be nothing
Yeah.
to the most important people in my life. What am I
Yes.
even doing? That's crazy.
I know, I know. And like you said, then I'm snippy, I'm snippy towards them. And I mean, you brought up a really good point that I know we mentioned earlier, but it's like having that schedule, having a schedule in place to know where you're going to place your energy, how much it's going to require of you to show up in a certain capacity. Because there's certain things that you're doing throughout your day. For example, like for me, I record content. And so when you record content, it takes a certain level of energy to show up, to be present, to be, focused. It takes a certain amount of energy. So then I personally need a break in between before I do something else. And so really understand your schedule. And it's funny that I'm saying this because that is literally what I'm working on today, is to say, okay, my content manager is having me do a bunch of content. And so I need to plan out my week to say, okay, this is going to take my time and my energy here. This is going to take my time and energy here. I'm meeting this person for lunch here. Do you know what I mean? And it really is something that you got to be aware of and plan that out accordingly so that you're not burnt out at the end of the day. Because I mean, I know you have somebody that you're coming home to, Hannah. I'm just me. And I'm okay with
You
that.
have family and like all that stuff.
No,
You're still coming home to people.
totally. But like, girl, I'm that person will be like, what? It's 9? Okay, it's bedtime. I already pulled out all my energy today. I'm going to bed. Don't
Yeah.
judge me. People are like, you're in bed? It's 9. I go, yes, and I'm tired. I get up at 5. Like, I have a whole morning routine. But no, I mean, I'm saying that to be silly. But no, I mean, but there are times, and yesterday was one of those times. Like I was talking to somebody on the phone at like 6 o'clock, and they were like, oh, you're probably going to get home and relax and, just call me after. And I was like, oh yeah, I'll be fine. I'll call you. I kid you not. I was home at 6:30. I was exhausted. I watched a little bit of TV just to like 30 minutes, just because I wanted to kind of wind down, and I was done. Mm-hmm. So now it's what, 7:30? And I'm like, oh man, I'm in bed by 9. Like, I kid you not. I did nothing. I just kind of laid there, relaxed, played on my phone. But I'm just like, this is it. This was it,
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and that's okay, because that's my life, wherever you are in your life, focus your energy accordingly. Schedule your energy accordingly, like Hannah said, coming home to family and so forth. So if I know oh my goodness, my girls and I, we always laugh because it's like, we're going out what time? 9 p.m.?
Immediately in my head, I was like,
do you remember when we used to get dressed at 10 p.m. and go out? I'm like, you want me to show up? I had my girlfriend reach out to me, my friend Gina. She's just like, hey, it's my birthday. She's like, she sent me the flyer. Girl, it started at 10 p.m. DJ, rooftop. I mean, that sounds all amazing, but I'm like, 10 p.m.? You want me out at 10 p.m.?
That's when my night ends.
I love
not
you,
when it begins.
No.
And listen, there's all like, we all love going out and having those nights where it just like turns into like something later than you thought it was going to be. But
I need like, 2 naps. I need 2 naps if you want me to stay up.
Not for me. Sorry. But again, like we're talking about how you want to show up. If your friend is inviting you to something that starts at 10 p.m. and you immediately cringe internally and you're like, oh, I don't know. Like I'm going to be tired. I'm going to be cranky. I'm not going to want to stay out till 1 a.m. Like, how are you really showing up? Is that going to be fun for you or your friend? Like if you can, rally and go do it and have a good time, by all means, go do it. But like, if it's not going to be a good time, don't be that Debbie Downer in the group that's like, we should really like call it a night. We should go home.
I want to go home.
Yeah, like, maybe it's just, that's the thing that you pass on, even though you love your friend and you want to celebrate them and go out with them or whatever. Maybe that's, you do it a different time or.
Yeah, just don't do it. Don't show up and be like, I can't be here anymore.
Yeah, or where you're like, oh my God, you guys, how late are we actually going to be? What time is it now? Is it time to go home? Maybe we should get the check. Like, are you guys
get the check? We're like, we just sat down.
Yeah, we've all been there. We speak from experience, I think.
We do, we really do. Well, that is our show, people. I am so grateful. This was hilarious. Thank you so much, Hannah. I appreciate you always. And honestly, people, I want to challenge you to understand the difference between toxic people and those difficult people that you just need to give love and grace to. And if you have any questions, definitely drop it in the comment section. We want to hear from you. What did you think about this show? We absolutely have a great time together. So
We
know
do,
that
we do.
I know we do. So thank you. And then our last show, what was our last show about? You guys got to go back and watch our last show. It was about, oh my goodness, I am drawing a blank, but definitely go find us on YouTube, obviously, or however you're watching us on Facebook or Ep360, and catch our previous show that we did. That was like a couple weeks ago, but I was just trying to remember.
Was it the one that you and I did together?
We did together, yeah. I forgot it was from self-doubt to self-worth, the power of positive self-talk. So yes, go back, watch that episode. It's amazing. And yeah, tell them who you are really quick.
Hi. I never introduced myself. My name is Hannah Peasley. I am the founder and CEO of HP&Co, which is a boutique business management firm. I also am the co-founder and COO of High Net Worth Women Institute, which is a online financial education platform specifically for high earning women, where the education and just the method of teaching is really geared towards women in general. And then I also do real estate investing on the side because I'm a nerd and I love it.
Yes. So I love everything we're doing. And, stay tuned. We're going to be doing some stuff together. Hannah and I, we're going to be putting some fun events together, but we'll talk more about it. Her and I, we're always about trying to collaborate and do things together because we love having fun, and you already know our energies align, so it's going to flow amazingly. So thank you all for joining again on this episode of You Were Meant for More, and don't forget to join us next week. Have a wonderful day wherever you're joining us from. Thank you so much. Bye. I'm like, oh, hold on, let me end it. Oh, there it is.
I want to get to know what you do, what inspires you, what you enjoy. My ability to lead really impacts women on a larger level because not every woman has the same story or the same journey. So understanding where they've come from and where they want to go helps me be the leader that I can so that I can show up in a space of authenticity for them.